Iga Swiatek isn't walking into Miami with rhythm right now, and that matters more than most people are willing to admit. When a six-time Grand Slam champion starts talking about adjustments before even hitting on center court, I pay attention because, at this level, those small frictions usually show up later as breakpoint inefficiency, rushed forehands, and subtle lapses in court positioning. We're coming off that quarterfinal loss at Indian Wells, where Iga Swiatek was outplayed in key moments by Elina Svitolina. And if you watch that match closely, the issue wasn't just execution, it was timing. Her contact point on the forehand was drifting slightly late, especially on higher bouncing balls, which forced her into more neutral rallies instead of dictating with that heavy topspin forehand that usually sits around. Sen. Lingning, Zhao RPM. Now, fast forward just a few days, and she's already in Florida trying to recalibrate for the Miami Open. But here's where it gets interesting and a bit concerning. She openly admits that practice has been tricky. That's not a throwaway line. In our world, that's code for disrupted preparation cycles. Weather interruptions, limited court access, and the inability to train on the main stadium court, those aren't small inconveniences. That's a direct hit to rhythm building, especially for a player like Swiatek, who relies heavily on structured, repetitive drilling patterns to lock in her baseline aggression. And let's talk about those closed patterns she mentioned. What she's referring to is her highly systemized rally construction serve +1, inside-out forehand into the backhand corner, then step inside the baseline and finish with an inside-in forehand. That pattern is her bread and butter. But when you can't rehearse those sequences consistently, especially on the actual match surface, you start seeing hesitation. I've seen this before with top players transitioning from Indian Wells to Miami. On paper, both are hard courts, but in reality, they play completely differently. Indian Wells is slower, higher bouncing, almost clay-like in some conditions, while Miami tends to be faster and flatter, especially under humid conditions where the ball skids through the court. So when Swiatek says she needs to adjust to the conditions, what she's really saying is, her margin for error just got smaller. And that's critical, because her game is built on heavy topspin, extreme grip positions, and physical dominance from the baseline. If the court speeds up, that topspin sits up less. It gives opponents more time to step in, redirect, and take the ball early. That's exactly what Svitolina did in Indian Wells. She absorbed pace, redirected cross-court, and forced Swiatek into defensive court coverage more often than we're used to seeing. Now layer on top of that the practice situation. 2 sessions. That's it. For a casual fan, that might sound fine. For an elite player trying to recalibrate after a loss, that's nowhere near enough, especially when you factor in that she hasn't even touched the center court yet. And this is where things get technical. Every stadium court has its own micro-conditions: lighting, wind tunnels, background visuals, even how the ball compresses off the surface. Players build muscle memory around these variables. If you don't get reps there, your first match becomes your adjustment phase. And at a WTA 1000 event, that's dangerous. I've seen players lose opening rounds simply because their depth control was off by half a meter. That's all it takes. Now, let's address something that hasn't been officially emphasized, but is clearly part of the picture: the tension in her camp. Reports of a heated moment with coach Tim Fissette during practice shouldn't be ignored. This isn't random. This usually happens when expectations and execution don't align. Fissette is known for structured, data-driven coaching. He emphasizes patterns, percentages, and disciplined shot selection. When a player like Swiatek, who thrives on control, starts feeling out of sync, frustration builds quickly, and frustration in practice often translates into rushed decision-making in matches. Let's break down what that could look like in Miami. First, serve consistency. Her first serve percentage has been hovering around the mid-60s, which is solid, but when she's under pressure, that number tends to drop. If her rhythm is off, we could see more second serves sitting up, especially kick serves that don't get enough height due to faster conditions. Second, return positioning. Swiatek usually stands relatively deep on second serves, giving herself time to generate that heavy return. But on faster courts, That positioning can backfire. Opponents can sneak in wide serves and open the court immediately. Third, rally tolerance. This is where she's elite, but only when she's in rhythm. If her footwork is even slightly delayed, her recovery steps become less efficient, and suddenly she's defending instead of dictating. Now, let's bring in the betting perspective, because this is where things get really interesting. Coming into Miami, Iga Swiatek is still likely to be priced as one of the top favorites. That's based on ranking, pedigree, and overall dominance over the past seasons. But if you're analyzing this purely from a form and preparation standpoint, there's value in questioning that. Short turnaround, limited practice, surface transition, visible frustration. Those are not ideal conditions for a deep run. I'm not saying she's going to crash out early, but I am saying this is not the version of Swiatek that steamrolls through, draws without dropping sets. If you're looking at potential vulnerabilities, aggressive counterpunchers and flat hitters become dangerous opponents here. Players who can take the ball early, flatten out rallies, and disrupt her topspin rhythm. Now, socially, the reaction has been mixed. Some fans are brushing this off. She always adjusts. She's too good. It's just practice. And yes, historically, she has shown incredible adaptability. But insiders, coaches, analysts, even former players are reading between the lines. When a top player starts publicly emphasizing adjustments, it usually means those adjustments haven't been fully solved yet. And Miami doesn't give you time. You don't get 3 rounds to find your game. You're expected to show up ready. Let's also consider the mental side. Swiatek is one of the most mentally disciplined players on tour. Her ability to reset between points, maintain focus, and stick to her game plan is elite. But even the best players have thresholds. Back-to-back tournaments, travel, surface changes, and a tough loss, all of that accumulates. If her first match in Miami turns into a grind-long rallies, missed break points, extended deuce games, that's where we'll really see where she stands mentally. Because right now, based on everything we're hearing, this is not a player entering the tournament with full clarity. And clarity is everything at this level. Looking ahead over the next 3 months, this stretch becomes crucial. Miami, then the transition toward clay. Normally, that's where Swiatek dominates, the higher bounce, slower conditions. It's tailor-made for her game. But if she doesn't stabilize her rhythm here, that uncertainty can carry over. And on clay, expectations are even higher. In my view, the key metric to watch in Miami isn't just wins and losses, it's her breakpoint conversion rate. When she's in control, she converts above 45%, sometimes even pushing 50%. If we see that number dip into the low 30s, that's a sign she's not fully settled. Also watch unforced errors on the forehand side. That's her weapon. But it's also the first thing to misfire when timing is off. Now, let me be clear. This is still Iga Swiatek. Her baseline aggression, court coverage, and tactical intelligence are among the best in the game. Even at 80%, she's a threat to anyone in the draw, but elite tennis isn't about being good, it's about being precise. And right now, precision is the question mark. So as we head into Miami, don't just watch the score lines, watch the details, the footwork, the spacing, the shot selection under pressure, because those details will tell you far more than any post-match interview. And if she finds her rhythm early, this entire narrative flips. She could easily build momentum and remind everyone why she's been the most dominant force on tour. But if those early matches are messy, if we see extended rallies ending in unforced errors, if her serve placement lacks variation, if her inside-out forehand isn't landing deep enough, then suddenly the door opens. And in a tournament like Miami, once that door opens, it doesn't stay half open for long. It swings wide, and someone is always ready to walk through it.